Hello and welcome! As promised, I managed to put together a tier list of every melee weapon in the game. In my labbing and PvP experience, I have come to realize melee weapons come down to two kinds: openers and finishers. Opener weapons enable you to make the enemy get close to ACS overload, whilst finisher weapons focus on punishing an ACS overload. These will be the criteria I will tier them by: their ability to finish or start a combo, along with the little nuances each of them happen to have. I will be showing PvP footage of every weapon in the tier list before actually tiering them, so you can get a good idea as to how it would flow in an actual combat scenario. My build, the Silver Lining, is built in a way to use a weapon of each type, but the issue is that any of the bigger weapons usually cause overburden, as it is a very lightweight build. So to remedy this and actually use some of the heavier weapons, I have come up with a new build. Say hello to the Emerald Lining. This is another fast, lightweight build that is capable of extreme movement, much like the Silver Lining, albeit slightly on the bulkier side. This build was made with finisher weapons in mind, as it doesn't use a melee weapon for its opener. For this build, I've chosen to run the Viento pistols, as they have a very quick fire rate and extremely good impact, only really lacking in ammo. Added to the build, we have the Bullet Orbit, which also has an impressive amount of impact when combined with the pistols. The video playing in the background should give you a gist of the bases I'm using. The only shoulder left open is for the finisher weapon of your choosing, which I will be showcasing throughout the tier list. So, with that said, let us move on over to the Armored Core 6 melee weapons tier list. Starting off, we have the Pulse Blade, also referred to as the Starter Melee. Its basic attack is a 2-slash combo that does alright damage and applies decent impact to the enemy, but be advised, it does not stagger enemies on hit, leaving you open to weapon fire due to melee animation lock. Its charge attack is slow, but will aggressively track the enemy so long you are locked onto them in any way. It will also stagger the enemy on hit, leaving them unable to act and open to any form of weapon fire on your end. As for the melee cancelling, this weapon's melee cancel works on both the basic and the charge slashes, though I would highly advise you exclusively use the charge slash on this weapon, as it will stagger the enemy on hit, which makes you safe, but it is also really convincing to use for mind games with melee cancels. Alright, listen here, you creatures from the abyss. You'll go to the comment and say, "Oh, but it's all Zimmerman, it's all Pile Bunkers doing." Why do you think I specified opener and finisher weapons, huh? What do you think its job is? If I see even one comment of this kind, I'm earshotting your house. Okay, sorry for the rant. Back to the tier list. From my hours upon hours of using this weapon, I can confidently say the Pulse Blade is S tier. The weapon is really versatile and works in most matchups, while being a gigantic threat if you know how to wield it. Up next is the Laser Slicer. For its basic attack, it slashes several times, each hit dealing damage and accumulative impact. This can be done twice in a row, with quite a long animation in comparison to other weapons. The hits do not stagger enemies, so it is rather unsafe to use on non-ACS overloaded enemies. For the charge attack, it has a slow startup, which leads into a lunge, several smaller hits, and then a big slash. The final slash staggers, but the smaller hits do not, making it terribly difficult to hit on moving targets. As for the melee cancels, this weapon has a certain dash distance, but will automatically initiate hits if you are close enough to the enemy. This applies to both of the attacks, but the basic attack sludge is instant, and the damage total is equal in the end of both attacks, so stick to the basic attacks for this one. This weapons fall in the finisher category, meaning it's better used post ACS overload as seen in the video. This is specifically where the new build shines, as it excels in getting that quick ACS overload to lead into your melee finisher. The Slicer basic combo will make your enemies watch an unskippable cutscene unless they use assault or pulse armor. For the few matches I did play this weapon, I would probably rank it at A. It has really good damage, the melee cancel on it is fantastic, and the hitbox is rather wide for what it is, makes it an excellent finisher weapon. Next on the list is the laser Dagger. For its basic attack, it does a 3-hit combo, dealing OK damage with decent impact, but ultimately no stagger. And for its charge attack, it starts with a delay, followed up by a fixed distance slash that sweeps from left to right. As for the melee cancels, the lunge of the basic attack and the startup of the charge attack can be cancelled. While this weapon might seem like a finisher weapon due to the 3-hit combo, it actually functions better as an opener, due to the end-lag cancelled post-hit being absurdly quick. Something of note, however, is that this weapon has unbelievably terrible vertical tracking. It will miss most enemies moving below you or under you. To alleviate this, try to keep them at an optimal range, rather than directly below you or above you. With the cancel tech, the unfathomably short cooldown, stagger and respectable damage, I am inclined to put the laser dagger in A tier, due to its sheer oppressive and threatening prowess. Only reason it doesn't get S is because of its fixed distance and bad vertical accuracy. Next on the list is the Plasma Thrower. Who even made this weapon? Is this some kind of joke from John Banda himself? Anyway, the Plasma Thrower has a long range melee hit for its basic attack that can be done twice. It can also miss if you're too far away. As for its charge attack, you spin up the weapon. Letting it go will do an AoE throw with a hit in there somewhere the size of a microbe that you have to be in a perfect range to hit, else it will all miss. Melee cancel? How about only being able to dash before you do the charge attack, or never be able to cancel the basic attacks? Seriously, this weapon only worked for quads and wheelchairs because they can basic attack without stopping. That is literally it. I'm not gonna PvP with this. You can't make me. Get out of here.
Release me! Release me!
And now we have the Laser Lance. Its basic attack is a single tap with good tracking, though no enemy stagger in particular. And its charge attack has a slow startup, followed up by a well-tracking charge forward that hits the enemy several times before hitting them one final time after the initial hits. As for the melee cancel, you can dash out of the basic attack's lunge, and it will hit automatically if you're close enough to the enemy. For the charge attack, you can only cancel the startup, but not after you've started lunging. This, of course, is the finisher weapon. With its absurd range and wild tracking on its charge attack, you can blow through enemy AP instantly. But its charge cancel being bad and the recovery post-hit being terrible is the real reason it ends up as a finisher. I admit it, I didn't play too many matches with the laser lance, but the philosophy of it is clear enough to me. This weapon gets a B tier. Sure, it hits extremely hard, but it's really slow, the melee cancel is barely usable, and it has a long cooldown. Definitely lower due to its lack of versatility. Next up is the Moonlight. The basic attack for this weapon is a unique long-range slash that can be used twice with relatively alright tracking, yet no enemy stagger on it. And for its charge attack, it has an extremely slow startup leading into a sweeping AoE going outwards. As for the melee cancel, the basic attack can be cancelled on its small startup, and for the charge attack, it can only be cancelled during the slow charge up. Yeah, this one is rough. The only way you can even begin to make this weapon work is by using it as a finisher. The double basic attack will extend the ACS overload, but the damage bonus is really negligible, and the charge attack is far too slow to be used post ACS overload. Of all weapons, this one is tragic. So much potential, but done so dirty. The Moonlight is D tier. Its damage is far too low, the charge attack is far too slow, and the melee cancels are non-existent, overshadowed by every other weapon in the list. Next up is the fan favorite, the Pile Bunker. The basic attack is a simple tap with surprisingly good tracking, but no enemy stagger. The charge attack has a very slow startup, no range, no lunge, and all damage. As for the melee cancel, the basic attack can be cancelled at any point during the lunge. Meanwhile, the charge attack can only be cancelled during the startup. Obviously, this falls under the category of a finisher weapon. The charge melee has absolutely nuclear damage, which is the trade-off you get for the lack of everything else, as the cancelling sucks and the basic attack is mediocre. Listen, I forgot to record PvP for this in specific, but do you like pipes by chance? Unfortunately, as much as I love this weapon to death, it gets a very sad C tier. Technically speaking, it is literally a harder to execute lance with equal damage, and this is not a coolness tier list. Up next we have the Chainsaw. Its basic attack is a multi-hitting slash that has rather good tracking, but no enemy stagger. And for its charge attack, the Chainsaw can be revved up, and if let go, it will lunge at the enemy and stab them with the chainsaw, dealing rapid hits and staggering the enemy all the while, up until it does a final slash to push the enemy off. As for the melee cancel, the lunge of the basic attack can be cancelled at any point. The charge attack shares the same property, only thing is that the revving is cancelled and must be reinitiated. As expected, this is another finisher weapon. The damage bonus from ACS overload pairs far too well with the chainsaw, as it has the highest punish out of all the melee weapons, but it wouldn't fare too badly as an opener either. I would be a bit cautious as well, because sometimes the hitbox tends to go a bit silly. Surprisingly enough, of all the tiers, the chainsaw is going to sit comfortably in S tier. Technically speaking, the weapon has it all. Melee attack is peak, the cooldown is short, and its charge attack is way too busted. The only challenge is the actual swap to charge. which will be remedied by practice alone. Next in the list is the Laser Blade. The basic attack is a simple slash that has really good tracking but doesn't stagger the enemy. And for its charge attack, after a short pause, it spin slashes in an AoE all around the AC, hitting twice and staggering each time. As for the melee cancel, the basic attack can be cancelled at any point in the lunge. Meanwhile, the charge attack, it can only be cancelled during the startup. It is also worth mentioning that the weapon has horrible verticality, so try to keep them at range to be more accurate or try to match their height. Naturally, this is also another finisher weapon. The range of the charge attack is surprisingly good, along with its damage, and the enemies can only do so much if they are ACS overloaded. After fighting enough people and even making one rage quit, I can safely say the Laser Blade sits at an A tier. The weapon's verticality is tragic, but its damage and long range make up for its weaknesses in other areas. Up next we have the Stun Baton. Its basic attack is a quick string of several hits back to back. Its charge attack has a startup, which transitions into a lunge that stabs the enemy and staggers them, placing sort of an electric bomb into the enemy, which detonates soon after, micro-staggering, applying impact and damaging the enemy. As for the melee cancels, the basic attack can be cancelled at any point in the lunge. Meanwhile, the charge attack can be cancelled during the startup or during the lunge. The Stun Baton is easily a finisher weapon, as landing the charge hit is far too difficult, and ACS overload confirms it, which the explosion, after not only micro-staggers them, but also sets them up for another ACS overload. This may be unexpected to some, but the Stun Baton for me sits at S tier. The weapon's sheer potential of causing not only insane damage on ACS overload, but setup for another combo is simply unmatched. It's so good, I'm willing to say it overshadows the difficulty of landing the hit itself. And for the final weapon we have the Coral Oscillator. The basic attack is a 180 vertical slash that hits the enemy from above, having extremely good tracking and staggering the enemy. And for its charge attack, the weapon flares as it grows in size, starting a sweep from the left side of the screen over to the right, hitting a crazy distance. As for the cancelling, the basic attack can be cancelled at any point in the lunge, and for the charged melee, it can be cancelled only during the startup of the sweep. Now here's something to laugh about. If you unlock and go into manual aim, by positioning your mouse to the right of the screen, you can initiate the sweep directly on top of the enemy's position, hitting them near instantly without them being able to dodge it. After playing several matches and pulling the forbidden tech on people, I must say, the Coral Oscillator is absolutely S tier. In technical terms, as long as you're good enough, you can constantly snipe people with its charge attack, and if that's too difficult, you can use it like a pulse blade but without the charged, and a slightly worse hitbox. And that's the tier list. I hope you enjoyed watching the video, and I sunk far too many hours collecting the gameplay and writing the whole script for it. But the melee addict of all people simply had to do it. Uploads might slow down after this one, as this really took a lot out of me. But outside of that, thank you for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Also come follow my